because of I was losing all the blood, I became addicted to ice.
What?
And this is like real.
That is unbelievable. How does this stuff even get that's
The
a whole
United States-
I mean, like a real addiction. It made me realize how you know you're addicted to something is when you're embarrassed. I would buy the big bags of ice, sit it on the passenger side of my car, and while I'm driving, I would just eat ice all day.
No way.
Wow. All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Realist People and Real Estate Podcast, where we talk about the real shit and not about real estate. I'm Brooke.
I'm Tyraa.
And I am Nicole.
And welcome to podcast number 2. But you know, one thing I will say is I've talked to so many of my girlfriends lately, and like this whole seasonal depression has become like a real thing. Like everybody's dealing with it. I've seen it on Facebook. And I know I go through it too.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys.
The sun shining today was a benefit. Even though it's freezing outside,
great.
Getting in the car and having the sun shining was probably like one of the most amazing feelings ever, because we have not seen that sun in a while. So definitely, it's going. We're going through it.
And did you guys know that the end of December, January, and February are the most depressing months? So I don't know if it's because of the weather or just a lack of sun.
Maybe that's why I always try to sneak to Florida in those months. I feel like when we always go to Florida every March, and I feel like every time we go to Florida, we come back, it's like that hump that you just get over. Like, okay, now we're getting into spring, we're ready for it. So yeah, definitely. That's crazy there. I think
it is. Yeah.
I didn't know that. I mean, it makes sense.
So I always be like, we just gotta get through February and we're good.
We got 28 more days, everybody.
Yeah. So everybody listening, just
28 days.
February.
You have 28 days when we get
That's
through
true.
it.
We have a short month.
We do. It is. Yeah. So 28 more days to get through it. So back to the subject of hair loss.
Yes.
We're going to talk about you for a minute, because I was on the hot seat last week. So we're going to dive into you for a minute, because I know that you've experienced this, and I know that people, you know, when I met you, you had incredibly long hair. That was a year ago. So kind of like, let's talk about that for a minute. Like what happened with your hair, and how did that work out?
Yes. So I had dealt with it's a stress-induced alopecia. Where I was losing my hair. It was more so for me like at the hairline and kind of like in the crown area. Yeah. I noticed it. So I had, like you said, I had really dark hair.
Yeah.
That was fake. I didn't really have long hair.
Oh, now the truth comes out. Look at that.
I'm pretty open about my extensions.
That's great. I love it. I honestly, knowing you as much as I've known you, as many conversations as we have, I would have never known that you had extensions in.
Oh,
Ever.
really?
Like they were. Yeah, I really thought that was your hair.
Oh no.
Girl, that was great. It looked good.
I became a pro because I dealt with it for probably.
So you had time out. You had extensions in while you were going through your hair loss?
Yeah.
No way.
Well, they weren't like permanent. They were clip-ins.
Look at the stuff we learn every day.
Right.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. So stress-induced alopecia.
So
now I'm learning you had extensions in, which I had no clue. All the times that we've talked.
And that she's a pro at putting them in.
And a pro at putting them in, which is even better, because those are hard. Those are not easy to put in.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
Well, my whole life I've always experimented with hair. Like I thought I was gonna become a hairstylist, but my parents kind of influenced me to go to college, and then I just never went.
Oh my gosh, this is like, I feel like this is deja vu.
And I always wanted to do hair too.
Yeah.
Just for the record.
That was like my calling. I should have been a hairstylist, and it was like drilled down my throat that I was supposed to go to college. So I went to college. I have a ton of student loans. I have 2 degrees in something that I'm not even doing.
Yeah, we don't even use.
Don't even use it. No.
That's crazy.
So that's crazy. So
we all have Nicole in our name, and
yes.
we all
start
off doing hair.
Yeah. Anyways, when I started losing my hair, it was super like traumatizing for me, because I've always loved doing different things with my hair. I loved chopping it off, letting it grow, dyeing it different colors, doing different things with it. And once I started like losing my hair, I felt like I couldn't keep coloring it because I didn't want to lose it even more.
Yeah. Damage it, yeah.
I didn't know what was going on, honestly. So the males in my family like tend to like their hair thins out. Like my brother's bald. My other brothers like got thin hair. My dad has like thinning of hair, and I was like, can this be genetic? Like as a female, like can I deal with that? Like can I inherit that trait?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Do you know? Can you? I don't know. Can you?
I researched it and they said you could.
Oh.
So I was really worried that it was just genetic and
Yeah.
it would never come back.
So what did you, go ahead.
How did that go? Like, what happened through the process?
Yeah, so I avoided it for a really long time and I would just hide it. And then it got to the point where people would like point it out and it like really affected
So
me.
did you have bald spots or was it just thinning? Like was it,
was
thin
like
or was
super
it?
thin in the back of my head where like you could see my scalp, yeah.
Wow.
And how was it coming out? Like when you comb it or like just?
Gradually it came out. Like I don't think I ever really like, I did have a lot of hair loss in the shower.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyways, I remember like sitting down at, actually I was working as a mortgage underwriter, had great benefits. My mom was like, Brooke, you need to like get a dermatologist appointment. Finally made one, and it was like scheduled for like the beginning of March. And then the end of February, like I was let go from my job, and they're like, yeah, your benefits end at the end of February.
Oh wow.
So
So
then
like
you had this appointment at the beginning of March. Oh my gosh.
So I tried calling to move it up, and they're like, you can't move it up.
Yeah.
So
So
I
what would
canceled
you
it.
go to for, so you canceled it. Like what kind of doctor would you go to for hair loss though?
Dermatologist.
A dermatologist? Okay.
Mhm.
So you didn't go?
I didn't go. So I like prolonged the process like a year longer.
Oh, so we're talking
Yeah.
like a whole year went by of you losing hair before you even started?
Oh, way longer than that. I
Really?
probably started losing it in 2000 and maybe 18, 19.
Wow.
So this is recent.
I was saying I met you in 20. I think we met in 20.
So yeah, but I looked back at like my
I'm 21.
archive stories, and I traced it back to when I first started my job in the mortgage industry. That's when I started losing it.
Oh,
So the stress.
yeah.
So it made sense.
How long did the whole like process go before you actually went to a doctor and said, hey, this is where I'm at?
Yeah, so I honestly avoided like going to the hairstylist at all. Like I would never get my hair cut because I was embarrassed for a hairstylist to like see my head.
Yeah.
But eventually, I did. I went to a hairstylist, and my hairstylist was like, Brooke, you sat down and I could tell all the way from like the table, like you're losing hair. Like she's like, have you had COVID? I did have COVID, but I was losing it before COVID, so I know that wasn't it.
Right.
She was like, you need to start taking like biotin. And I went home and talked to my mom. My mom was like, Brooke, like you just need to make the appointment. We'll pay for it. So I made the appointment, and I was probably like, I started seeing my dermatologist 2022, at the beginning of 2022.
It's a lot during the
Unbelievable.
pandemic too, because I lost a lot of hair just during the pandemic. I think I went, well, I'm sure a lot of women did as well, but it was just like a shock.
Stressful, yeah.
Because I wasn't able to go to my hairstylist, and it got in so much
my
of
grays
that
were
routine.
popping.
Yeah, you get in that routine of going to your hairstylist, and then when the pandemic happened, everything shut down. We couldn't go, and then it was like a shock for our hair, and I feel like that's why I lost a lot of hair around that time. Yeah.
What was the prognosis after that?
I literally, before I had seen a dermatologist, I was trying to do like any at-home DIY treatment you could do. I was putting like so many oils in my hair to see if like that would help it grow back. I was not putting heat on it. I had to wear extensions because my hair was so thin, and then I would use like this spray to like cover up my bald spots. So it was like for like gray hair. So
Yeah.
to, like,
I know all about that, trust me.
I do too.
But I would use it for like where like my head like was balding, and people were like, Brooke, I've never noticed like your hair was that thin. I'm like, because I was good at hiding it.
Yeah.
And I would wear my hair half up like you have it right now, Nicole.
Yeah.
You couldn't tell.
So
Yeah.
fast forward to you went to the doctor.
I went to
You
the
figured
doctor.
out what was happening, and then
She first had me go get like some blood work. They wanted to check my levels, see if
thyroid. I would even think thyroid.
Yeah.
Something that was checked.
So they checked everything. Everything was normal, and she was like, basically it's stress-induced alopecia. She gave me different avenues I could go, like the PRP, which I'm like a baby when it comes to like drawing blood.
Oh, really?
So I was like, no, we're not doing that. So I know a lot of women will go on Rogaine, but she told me, she was like, once you start Rogaine, if you stop it, you'll start to lose more hair.
Really?
Like it's a forever thing. You have to stay on Rogaine.
Wow, I wouldn't have known that either. I thought
That probably
was a
was
quick fix.
intentional.
So she was like, I don't recommend you going on Rogaine. So then she so I did injections. I can't remember the name of the injections right now. And then I did like a topical.
Where were the injections?
I was just gonna ask that. Like, where did they inject it in your head, or was it? Stop it.
It's just like little needles, and she would just like prick all around my head.
I wonder if that was was that to like stimulate the follicle, or
for the growth, to stimulate it to make.
Yeah. So at the root of hair loss or hair thinning it's inflamed. It's like an inflamed like, follicle. So it's like a
de-inflammatory.
Yeah.
Wow, I would never have known that.
And I remember like her telling me this, and she's like, "We're gonna try and do this. Like this is like what we're gonna do." And I remember driving home like crying, like because she couldn't tell me this was gonna be like a permanent thing. Like I might have to continue getting these things done. And I was like, why does this happen to me?
Yeah.
Like,
especially for us as women.
Yeah.
Like our
hair is like a big deal.
Thing. And that was even for me, like when I shaved my head, that was like a huge deal for me. But then I had to embrace it because mine wasn't growing back anytime soon. So I figured I was at that point in my life, I'm going to embrace having a bald head. And I did. And it was great while it lasted. But as soon as that hair started growing back, I wish I would have embraced the styles I could have had while it was growing back, especially now. Like pixie styles are super in. I didn't care. Like it came back in like white and gray. As soon as I got the clearance to dye it, I was dyeing it again. And I wish I would have embraced those, you know, phases of my life, because hair is a big deal. And for us as women, you know, it
affects everything.
It does.
It affects our confidence. It just affects everything.
I mean, you
go
from
a little girl, like it affects.
Remember when your mom would like be like, "You're gonna cut bangs today," and then all of a sudden, like she cut your bangs, and you go and you're like, "I have bangs." Even as an adult, I've made some bad bangs. Don't cut your bangs, you guys.
I did that when
I'm sorry. I didn't even.
I'm still growing them out. Okay.
Cut my bangs when I was pregnant.
I did it when
My
I was
best
6.
friend literally looked at me and she said, "You know you're cutting your bangs while you're pregnant." But Will and I were going to a wedding, and I was 6 months pregnant, and I had this vision. So
just take a moment.
That was not planned, everybody. That was like...
No, that's so funny. You guys are like making me cry up right now.
Right.
Tyra's trying to hold it back.
I know. So I was 6 months. I'm gonna go back to my story, because don't cut your bangs while you're pregnant. I'm gonna say
while you're sick.
Or while you're
or at all.
Okay. So I had this like Egyptian dress, and I was 6 months pregnant, and I'm like, oh, it would be super sweet for me to have like this bob haircut and cut my bangs. And then my husband proposes while I'm in this dress with bangs that I absolutely hate. So the forever picture of me.
Hold on, how did you cut your bangs?
Like they were like just like I had this dress and I wanted this Egyptian look to myself.
You could have got the clip-on bangs.
Well, I didn't know that.
Did you cut them too short?
No, it just didn't look good.
Oh man.
And it like
we're gonna put that picture.
We're gonna put the picture. I'm gonna send you my engagement picture. It's because then I like literally I wish my mom would have been like, "Nikki, don't cut your bangs," because she knew he was proposing. I was 6 months pregnant. I had this Egyptian dress on, and I had these like stark cross bangs. And thank God I painted my nails too before, like, because I didn't even know what was happening. But I'm like, why wouldn't anyone have told me don't cut your bangs right now, because it's not gonna,
So you let him take the picture and everything?
I did. And then we make a really cute picture. We're on the beach. So, like, the picture is beautiful. And he proposed in St. Augustine, but nobody gave me the heads up.
It probably was not even that bad. I want to see the picture.
Yeah, I want to see the picture too.
I
wanted to ask you, when your hair grew back in, did it grow in like a different texture?
It did. It like grew back, like almost like duck feathers, like feather downy. Like super fine. Soft, really fine.
Like it was starting all over.
Yeah, but then what's crazy, like you know how like a newborn baby, like their hair grows in, and then sometimes baby's hair will fall out and then start to regrow. That's what happened with me. It grew in almost white. There was no pigment in it whatsoever, and it was super fine and like duck feathers. And then some of it started to like fall out again, and then as it's like got longer, it started to thicken up. I got my thick hair back. It started to thicken up. It started to get the pigment back in it. So I'm at this point now, like I know we're on camera, I'm not gonna say it, but I'm mostly gray. But when it came back, like it started to have that like salt and pepper look, and it came back super, super curly, and my curls have stayed since.
So a
Like,
lot more curly.
I always had wavy hair, but when it grew back, it came back really, really curly.
And
like,
it stayed that
And
way.
it stayed.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it came back. Like, did you notice any texture difference from your hair growing back now? Is it still the same? Still the same hair?
So where are you now with your hair experience?
So we did 6 months of the injections once a month. I still do the topical. It's like a 2-week on, 2-week off process. You just kind of put it on at night, leave it on.
And just on your scalp? You just put it on your scalp?
And we're gonna take a break. So I have a dermatologist appointment scheduled for like June 1st. So she's gonna evaluate. If I need to come in any sooner, I will.
Are you noticing a difference though?
I definitely noticed a difference.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah. I have pictures on my Facebook of like a before and after of my treatments, and it's like crazy.
We'll have to make sure that goes up too.
Yeah, I've had so many people reach out to me and like reach out to my mom, and they're like, you know, my son or my daughter's going through this. Like, can Brooke like talk to them?
Oh,
it's kind of like your cancer
That's
story.
awesome.
Yeah, that's cool.
It is, and it's amazing how like it affects other people.
So many people.
Yeah, and your story, because even for me with hair loss, was huge. So, you know, even now being able to tell your story is amazing. It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and I know Tyraa. Were you saying something about being? You were talking about something with hair when we first started this.
Yeah, so they have this whole thing right now where women, and it's mostly women of color, that used hair relaxers to make our hair straighter. And most of us started off with them when, like, I've had chemicals in my hair since I was 5.
Okay.
So a lot of black women start off as kids with chemicals in their hair. So now they have this.
Really quick, explain like what like chemicals to relax your hair.
Yeah, to make it straight. Because our hair is, most of our hair is really coarse.
Okay.
And mine was really, well, it still is really coarse, really thick.
So your curls
So
are
when
tight.
you're little, it's hard for the mother to like deal with our type of hair. So we started off young with chemicals in our hair. So now they have this big lawsuit going on where if women used relaxers in their hair, it's a big lawsuit. Long story short, it causes cancer.
No way.
Wow.
It caused cancer. I actually was filled out the form because I'm like, oh yeah, I use relaxers just to, see.
Right.
So I suffered an experience that dealt with fibroids. 2018. So I noticed on there it said fibroids. So I filled out the form, they called me back, they're like, hey, you're a really great candidate because a lot of women that use these hair straighteners develop either like ovarian cancer or like fibroids and stuff, or uterine cancer, like different things like that. So they asked me a few questions, and they're actually going to take my case because of what I went through with my fibroid experience.
What's a fibroid? Can you explain that?
So it's like a tumor inside your uterus.
Oh wow.
And it could get.
So a lot of the cancers like dealt with women in their reproductive
in that area.
Wow.
And when the way they explained it to me it was almost like intentional with these people who own these hair product companies. One of the big names was Dark and Lovely. I don't know if you guys heard of that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm pretty sure, but they're like the company, but they had a lot of other companies under different names, but it was their company.
Wow.
So one of the things that was so crazy is that one of the products inside of it was a chemical that's used to embalm like dead people.
What?
That made my mouth drop when they told me that.
That is unbelievable. How does this stuff even get approved? Like
The United States approves everything.
crazy.
That's a whole nother conversation for the next podcast.
And the main reason
that even gets approved, but that's unbelievable.
The main reason that they're now getting sued is because they didn't put that disclosure on the product. It's like, it's not because, it's like you guys allow things to be on the shelf as long as you put a disclosure on there, like may cause cancer.
May cause cancer, and we're gonna stick something in you that
we would have never used it if we hadn't done
exactly.
Well, the crazy thing is people still use products when it says may cause cancer.
I feel like,
but they allow them on the shelves.
I feel like wearing your hair natural has become like a big trend, though.
Yeah. So I used those chemicals, from the time I was 5. And I finally
on a regular basis? Was it a regular basis?
Wow. Like every 4 to 6 weeks. All the way until I finally stopped getting chemical straightening products in my hair at, I think it was 28.
Wow.
So
think about that
was a long time.
Yeah.
And it kind of like has to make you so angry at some point to think of all the years that went by that every 4 to 6 weeks you were putting this stuff into your body, dealt with what you dealt with.
Especially my experience with fibroids. Because that's a whole nother subject that we could probably talk about another time.
What would be like some things that you went through with that? Yeah. If anyone else may be experiencing.
So, I'll just tell y'all how I kind of found out about the situation. I was on my way to Vegas, and I think this was 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And I was, when I get on the plane, I just go to sleep. So I woke up and I'm like, something don't feel right. So I felt like I was getting like cramps or whatever.
Yeah.
You guys might not want to hear this. So I felt like I was getting like cramps.
Your cycle,
but I was like nowhere near about to be on it. So I'm like, this is weird. So I'm like, I gotta go to the bathroom and figure out what's going on. Yeah. And I'm sitting in the middle, and
of course,
like 2 people.
Oh, that's the worst.
And so I'm like, oh well, whatever. I gotta do it. So I got up, went to the bathroom, blood everywhere.
No.
It was blood everywhere. So I had to just like figure it out, get like a whole bunch of tissue or whatever.
You're on a plane right now.
Because you're freaking out. You're like,
I'm like freaking out.
Run to the store and
I'm freaking out. Like, what's going on? Because it's nowhere near like my cycle or whatever. I don't know, whatever. So I'm on a plane like by myself or whatever. And so I went back, sat down, and whatever. So anyway, went through the whole Vegas trip or whatever.
So was it like you were on your cycle? Like was it the entire Vegas trip? Oh, that's a bummer. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're in Vegas.
And I was and my.
And of course, your mind's probably going like crazy. Like what is happening?
And it was like my oldest, my brother, my sister-in-law, them were there, and I got there, and I'm like, I can't go nowhere. Not the way that I feel. And my sister was like, girl, you in Vegas. You're not just about to stay in the room. And I'm like, okay. But they didn't know anything about what I'm going through. But I just, whatever, finished my whole Vegas. I kept it in, finished my whole Vegas experience. Then I got back home, and I'm like, I got to figure out what's going on because this whole time I'm bleeding.
Oh, wow.
So went to the doctor, and first I found out like my uterus is like falling out, first of all. My uterus is like falling down. They said this don't happen to people until they're usually like in their 80s.
I was going to say like older.
Yeah, so they're like in their 80s or you've had like 10 kids. So that was one thing.
I'm halfway there.
Yeah, you had a lot of kids.
They ran a whole bunch of tests or whatever to figure out what's going on with the bleeding because I ended up bleeding for like a year straight.
Wow.
But prior to that, they ran a whole bunch of tests. They did find out I have fibroids. The first thing they tried was like some injections to slow the bleeding.
Did they immediately try, and let me just ask this, did they try birth control?
Yeah, it was like a birth control
Which
injection.
is crazy because birth control is like absolutely horrible for you, but go figure that that's what they were.
They were trying to like slow it down and get me more on a regular cycle. So that didn't work. I'm constantly losing blood. Like I said, I went like a year straight with just bleeding. So when I say a year straight, I'm not exaggerating.
That's
a year straight. It was like you wake up and you think like, oh wow, I'm not bleeding today. And then like by the end of the day you start.
I wonder if like your activity throughout the day too, like when you rest, if it will like calm down or.
I was losing blood constantly. I already have being anemic in my family. With my mom was anemic. So my blood was dropping like really low because I was losing all the blood. I became addicted to ice. And this is like real. I mean, like a real addiction.
I believe it.
It made me realize how you know you're addicted to something is when you're embarrassed Because I went in the store so much asking for ice, I would get embarrassed to ask for ice. So I started off buying them little bags, you know, the little liquor bags, a couple times a day. Then I got to the bigger bags to the point where I would buy the big bags of
like,
ice.
Are you chewing it? Like,
yes.
Oh my gosh.
I would buy the big bags of ice, sitting on the passenger side of my car, and while I'm driving, I would just eat ice.
You were addicted to like the coldness, or was it just needing water?
It's something that you crave when you're anemic. So I was addicted to just crunching on the ice. It wasn't that I was thirsty or anything. I wouldn't even know. I
wouldn't even know that about being anemic. Like
when you're anemic, if you're severely anemic, you crave ice. So I had an ice addiction.
So that's a new one.
Yeah, and it was really bad.
But I mean, it's something to make people aware because I would have never known that. Like that's
if you start craving ice, you should check your blood levels.
Interesting.
So I started learning like things to take when your blood is low, like red wine is good for low blood. So I love that part.
Yes.
But anyway, so started losing a lot of blood. And they're like, you know, the injections aren't really working. You're still losing a lot of blood. The only other thing is a hysterectomy. And they're like, and I'm like, I don't want to have any more kids anyway. I'm cool, so I'm fine with hysterectomy. A uterus is no use except to carry a baby anyway. So I got the hysterectomy.
And did everything change after that, or is that what
everything,
you found?
Everything changed as far as all my issues with the bleeding. So I don't get periods anymore, anything like that. All the bleeding issues stopped.
Shoot, I can sign me up.
It did turn into a whole nother issue, but this podcast is long enough to go in. That's when I went into ICU and all that after my hysterectomy that I had. But it did stop that issue.
So then how did you correlate like what you were going through with the chemicals? And or even everything that was going on with the chemicals, and
so I had no clue. I just found that out. Like maybe a month ago.
Wow.
This whole experience happened in 2000. I had my hysterectomy in 2018.
So you went through all those years of not knowing like why this happened or what happened.
I had no clue. No one had fibroids, anything like that in my family. I had no clue what that even was. Yeah. It was such a horrible experience. I ended up joining groups on Facebook, and it's so many women that goes through this.
And I'm sure, I'm sure it's great to talk about because I you know, going through that through your life, you probably had no answers. Now it's starting to realize that you might have answers. Same thing with you with your hair loss, like all that time that passed that you didn't know what was going on. Yeah. And then once you figure it out, talking about it is great, even for me with my story, because
other women,
there's other people and other women who may be going through the same thing. So that's unbelievable.
The story is just stay natural and eat organic foods. And
right. If we could all just do that,
life would be grand.
Have a plant-based
and don't cut bangs.
Don't cut bangs.
Especially at 6.
At 6. Yeah, that was way better. Or when you're pregnant.
Or when you're pregnant.
Because those are bad decisions.
Or about to get proposed.
All right, guys. Well,
we don't know about that. Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in to the RPR podcast. Stay tuned for next week's episode. We're going to have Becky Alley on the podcast, our preferred blender. Super excited to talk with her about her story. And
yeah. Great time, girls.
Loved it.
Talk about real shit.
That's a wrap for episode 2.
Episode 2 in the books.
Peace.
Our podcast.
Bye, everybody.